watching. So in today's video, I'm going to give you 8 tips on how to communicate effectively in your relationship. Tip number 1 is listen more than you speak. People tend to go on the defensive when they don't like what they're hearing, so they end up striking back with blame or insults. So you want to avoid that by trying to listen, keeping an open mind. Many times before the other person is even done talking, we're already thinking of what we're going to say back, how we're going to strike back. So instead of doing that, try to keep an open mind, like I said, and listen to the other person and really try to understand where the other person is coming from. In order to do that, just take a deep breath and try to focus on finding a solution to the problem rather than getting defensive. Tip number 2 is eye contact and body demeanor. Show that you're listening by giving eye contact and giving the appropriate signs with your body that you're listening. Your body needs to show that you're engaged and that you're paying attention and that you care what the other person is saying. An example of a person who doesn't give this is like a typical teenager. You're trying to tell them what they did wrong, or you're trying to talk to them, but they're slouched, they're rolling their eyes, they're looking away. These are all signs that they don't care what you're saying and that they're not listening and they're not giving you respect. So in your relationship, try to avoid that as much as possible. Give your partner the appropriate respect in giving them the eye contact, giving them that body language that shows that you care what they're saying and that you're listening. Tip number 3 is to avoid absolute phrases. So what do I mean by that? That means using words that say like, you never do this, or you're always like that. That shows that there is no room for anything other than the negative statement that you're saying. Examples of absolute phrases are, you never help me around the house, you never listen, or you always get to do what you want. These are absolute phrases that show that this person has never shown anything other than that negative behavior you're attaching to that person. As soon as you start giving absolute phrases, the other person starts to go on the defensive to try to find reasons of why you are wrong and why what you're saying is not true. So try to avoid the absolute phrases and just stick to the behavior that's bothering you at the moment and focus on your own feeling. The 4th tip is to take breaks, and this is very important. You want to take breaks when you start feeling overwhelmed, when you start feeling that the argument's starting to get to a different level where it's becoming toxic, there's yelling, throwing things. When you're becoming too angry to be able to listen, you need to be able to be self-aware of that and step away. So take breaks when you feel overwhelmed. In order to take breaks and be self-aware of that, you have to be okay with being angry. Being angry is a normal feeling, and sometimes we get angry in our relationships with our partner. So make sure that you take the break and you understand and you're self-aware that I'm upset, I can't handle this right now, I can't provide any positive or any type of solution to the problem. So let me just step away to breathe, calm down, and then when you're ready, you must always come back. So taking breaks is fine, but make sure you come back. Make sure you guys agree at a time when you guys can talk about the problem and really find a solution. Don't forget about it, but always take breaks when you're overwhelmed. Tip number 5 is to use I statement. The whole point of this is to avoid the other person to start bringing up their defenses and just focus on what's bothering you. What an I statement does, it allows me to focus on what I'm feeling and how I perceive the situation and communicate that to the other person. How we feel and how we perceive the situation isn't always the reality, isn't always the logic part of what actually happened, but it is your view of the situation, and it doesn't necessarily blame the other person. It just shows what you're focusing on and what's bothering you. When you utilize I statements, you're not blaming the other person. So instead of saying, you make me feel so angry, or you make me feel so stressed out, you're saying, I feel stressed out when this happens, or when you say this. So instead of focusing on the other person, you're focusing on your own feeling, you're taking ownership of your feeling, and you're able to be aware of what's bothering you and the fact that you're choosing to feel a certain way. You always have the choice of how you decide to feel about what a person says to you. Tip number 6 is active listening. When you are utilizing active listening skills, you are repeating what you heard from the other person to make sure that you're understanding. An example of a misunderstanding me and my husband had is one day I came home from work, I was really tired, I was really stressed out, and I started to make dinner and I was giving attitude and I was just not in a good mood. So my husband just comes in and says, "You know what, let me make dinner, I'll do it myself, you don't have to do it." I perceived that he didn't need me and he didn't want me to cook for him. And so I took that very personal. So I repeated that statement. It's like, "What, you don't need me?" And from there, I misunderstood what he said because my active listening wasn't on point, but he was able to retract his steps and say, "You know what, I'm trying to help you out. It has nothing to do that I don't want you to cook for me or I don't care for you, but that I'm trying to help you have your day go smoother or maybe relax a little bit while he makes dinner." So that was a way where active listening helped us kind of clarify what we understood and how we phrased things. Tip number 7 is to focus on the behavior, not the person. For example, if your partner constantly leaves a mess in the restroom, instead of saying statements like, "You're such a pig, you're so disgusting, you're always leaving a mess in the restroom," instead of saying something like that where you're attacking the character of the person, calling them a pig, calling them disgusting, instead of using statements like that, in focusing on the behavior, you're able to focus on what's bothering you. So the person is not really bothering you, it's the behavior. So when the restroom is a mess, I get so anxious, I get stressed out, and I can't find anything. Can you please pick up after yourself? See how that statement is only focusing on the mess in the restroom, not the person, and it's not insulting them. So if you focus on the behavior that bothers you, you're going to be able to really effectively get the action or the change that you want the other person to make in order for life to go smoother. For example, a clean restroom. And tip number 8, which is the last one and the most important, is to show appreciation when things are going well. When you guys are not arguing, when the person does something that you appreciate, make sure you communicate that to the other person. Make sure that you show them that you appreciate them so they can see that they are loved and they're cared for and that you actually noticed what they did for you. A small thank you can always go a very long way. So those were my 8 tips. I hope they helped you out in your relationships and how to communicate more effectively. And I know some of them may have been pretty obvious, but sometimes we need a reminder that the obvious things we don't do and might help you become more self-aware on listening, eye contact, body language, and things like that. But the most important tip I can give you is that none of these 8 tips will work unless you show that you're genuinely interested and you genuinely care what the other person is saying. That is the bottom of all communication. If you don't care what the other person is saying, as much as you're trying to fake these 8 tips or anything else to show that you're listening, it won't work. So it all comes down to being interested in caring what the other person is telling you at the moment. You can't fake yourself into good communication. You have to be genuine, you have to be honest, and really care for the other person. So those were my 8 tips, and this is my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and follow my channel if you want to hear any more videos or see any more videos when it comes to relationships. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!